Hello and welcome to Recap Rewind for January 2024. I am MineyCart, your host today, and I am joined by my fellow co-host, Henriikssen. Hello, Henrik.
Hello, a pleasure to be here. I'm
How are you
excited.
doing today?
Sick, but excited to
I
be kicking
feel
off
that.
this new series.
Yes, both of your hosts today are sick, but we have some guests that hopefully are not sick. We have the wonderful Flo203.
Hello, you probably don't know me. I've recently joined, but I'll do my best to provide entertainment.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of work for us this month. He was on Insiders, he hosted the recap, we did an interview with him, now he's on
Ooh.
Rewind. He just hangs around like a bad smell, what can I say? I'm joking. And our other guest is the incredible, as dubbed by Finn, Lowcast extraordinaire, Ratburn. Hello, sir.
Hello, that's me.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm weirdly tired for like noon, but luckily not sick like some of you.
Hopefully you don't catch anything on this call.
Yeah,
Anyway,
really
so
interesting.
I guess let me take a moment to sort of explain officially on the episode, like what Recap Rewind is going to be. So Recap Rewind is spawned from the community recaps, which I think a lot of people love, getting a bit long. We've had so many great ideas, like the community interviews and stuff, and they've grown and grown to the point where they were getting to nearly be 20-minute long videos. And from a production side of things, that won't do.
It's not feasible, no.
Yeah. So what we wanted this more casual place where we can more deep dive into the conversations while keeping the recaps concise and a recap and not a deep dive, which is what this will be. I also wanted this to be a place where if we do happen to miss anything, or if there's anything that needs to be corrected, changed, acknowledged, we can do it here, which is why these recap rewinds will be a couple of days after the recap releases, because we want people to have that time to provide that feedback to us. And we have, as most often we do, have some feedback which we'll talk a little bit about later in the episode. But to sort of start off today's episode, I want to quickly run through the headlines that we talked about in this month's recap, just to remind everybody and remind ourselves of the events of the past month. So actually, Henrik, would you like to go like one for one? Like if I read one, you read one.
Sure,
That's
we'll
my
do this
fellow
a
host.
fun way, yeah.
Okay, if I start us off, in community news, the PC prefect elections happened this month, and 3 candidates were elected.
Then we had full series any percent world record achieved by Flo, which was notable for being the first run where in GBC there was the use of ace strats.
Yep. Speaking of full series, Flo was also doing 100% full series this month, and he got world record despite a crash during 7 Part 1 PC. A computer crash, I will emphasise, not a game crash, because when we were writing the script, our writers were very confused when I said there was a crash during 7 Part 1, and then they realised what I meant when I confirmed PC crash.
And speaking of Flo, for the third time, he on Twitch has become the second ever Twitch partner who primarily speedruns Harry Potter games, and the fourth overall who has a run on the HPSR DC leaderboards. So
Well,
you have two
actually
right
not
now.
first, but yes, I'll accept that.
It's good that I got to talk about this one. In HP2PC, the Reader project managed by the wonderful Henriikssen released.
Don't know who that guy is.
Hmm.
He must smell. Anyways, also, Icon and Vlad managed to, a little bit back to back, get the HP1 high jump world record.
Very impressive. And coming to our guest, which again we'll be deep diving into this later on in the episode, but HP2PC Lowcast has its first 60 cast run, and additionally can now go down to 53 casts.
Ooh.
Technically
Speaking
52
of
even, but yeah, we'll talk about that later.
oh, okay, we're gonna get some exclusive scoops. Uh, and still speaking of Lowcast, but this time in HP1 PC, it has come down to just 80 casts. It's getting lower and lower each time someone tries to find something new, it seems.
It is, and I've heard that that's gone even lower this month, but we won't talk about that because that's in February, and we are talking about January. In speaking more of HP2 PC specifically, the Jumpless boards got wiped because a trick was found to completely complete the game without jumping and without warping. So no more warping in Jumpless.
Yep, Spongify has finally been jumpless, I guess. Moving on to a different type of HP game that's not Trifecta for once. In Quidditch World Cup, uh, there was a bug found, I guess, which allows you to transfer your tutorial stats from one save to another. It's quite complicated. It's better explained in the recap itself.
Yes, by the lazy bar steward, Nikki, as Flo dubbed in the recap itself. But speaking of non-trifecta games, HP1 Xbox, there was a discovery made of being able to talk to NPCs in cutscenes, which is useful in house point ceremonies to trade cards while the cutscene plays out. I think if I remember correctly, you could trade around 15 cards depending on the RNG, but I may be pulling that out of my butt. I don't remember the
Yes.
exact number.
It's incredibly useful and it saves a lot of seconds every time you need to trade cards in Hundo. Moving to another console game, but this time on the PS1, the HP2 Any% has been brought down to a measly 1 hour and 34 minutes by Tego Samigo,
Yep,
which is incredible, by the way.
it's
It's
very
incredibly
incredible.
low.
Tego is doing incredible things in the PS1 games, and I echo Flo's sentiments in the recap. Keep going, Tego. We're all so impressed. That sounded incredibly sarcastic, but I didn't mean it to. And finally, in the news, Hogwarts Legacy saw War Drums complete the first ever Any% hard run on PC. The first person to ever do so. This run is more difficult than Ranrock because to kill Ranrock you simply need level 24, but to complete the game in what we define as Any%, you need level 34. So that's an extra 10 levels of grinding. So that
You
sure
need to
is.
reach that level in order to get to the house point ceremony at the end of the school year. And that's why it takes a lot longer to complete than just kill Ranrock, which is the most popular category out of the two.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, moving on now, I want to take a moment in these episodes to highlight the production of the main recap and give thanks to everyone that was involved. So this month, we have a wonderful host who is joining us today, Flo203.
Hello.
We have script and thumbnail and additional graphics provided by the wonderful Nikki. CCing provided by the wonderful Winter, which is now there. It wasn't there at launch, but the subtitles are now available if you want to read along while you listen to the recap. Editing and script support by this person called MineyCart. I don't know, they sound like a bit of a douche. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, they also sound like this now.
Thanks. And additional gameplay footage was provided from HP1 PS1 by Flo, HP2 PS1 by Jinx, Jinx Rook, not Jinx Rock. GBA gameplay footage was provided by Complex Beaver, aka Liam, aka Liam. No, sorry, that joke's a bit odd now. And Hogwarts Legacy gameplay footage was provided by the wonderful Ilish. Flo's German girlfriend, as apparently she's now been dubbed according to the script. But no, Ilish is great.
You know, it was really funny when she heard the script because she was like, yeah, the way it sounds like my only achievement was becoming Flo's girlfriend.
I want to emphasize, Nikki wrote that. I had nothing to do with that. I said you can send it to Flo. I don't know if he'll read it, but you can send it to him.
It was just really funny.
Now she's also known for playing Sprout in the redub. But we'll get there.
True.
We'll get there when we get there.
But moving on now, before we get to our deep dive discussion, stories that deserve more love this month. We're gonna sort of pick out a story that we think deserve more love. But before we get started, this is the point where I want to take a moment and acknowledge some feedback that we got because I realized in reviewing the episode that I did somehow miss including this in the episode. But when we did the deep dive talk about the Lowcast strat, particularly the Aragog strat, we neglected to mention that Human was the original person that discovered the original bounce in Aragog. And for that, I send my apologies. But yes, Human was the original person, and Ratburn, to my knowledge at least, it can sometimes, I will admit, be hard to keep up, develop that strat more and brought it to where it's a feasible setup today. Am I correct with that, Ratburn?
And that's pretty much accurate. I guess feasible is arguable. I haven't actually proven it by doing it in a run yet, so maybe feasible.
At least possible. It's doable, just probably not viable in runs, at least for now.
It's probably more doable than it was before.
That's good.
As strong of a claim as I'm willing to make.
Fair enough. So, does anyone else have any stories that they felt deserved a bit more love this month? Maybe even stories that didn't make the recap?
I guess one I would say is probably didn't make it to the recap just because it's ILs, but there were new strats for glitchless boomslang and defendo, which saw pretty big improvements there, especially with like the 148 glitchless defendo from Cake, which pretty ridiculous time to be honest.
Yep. Now you say that, I'm annoyed because it didn't get included. But that's what this is about. It's about when stuff does get missed, highlighting it here. Yes, some incredible finds by Human and Cake in Boomslang and Defender. I watched Paul do a Defender glitchless IR last night because he sent it to me. And the level of what is happening here, like, how do you figure something like this out, is insane. Like, mad respects to Cake and to Human for finding. I mean, Human, I think we talked about it in my interview at Burn, but Human's always finding these like micro time saves that are so like interesting to look at, like the smallest little tweaks that save time.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, this one in Boomslang wasn't even like that small. I think it's like 14 seconds eventually with all of the improvements he got there, so that was actually a pretty big one.
Oh yeah, definitely. The Boomslang stuff is very big, and I hear from Nixo at least that the first part is semi-consistent, but then the second half is a bit painful. But
Yeah,
you know,
I haven't actually tried the Boomslang one, but that is about what it looks like to me.
fair enough. Does anyone else have any underappreciated stories this month that they want to acknowledge?
I think I want to take this time to highlight a little bit of Dark Cake's mod, and I don't remember the name of the mod. Basically, it was messing up with the whole of HP2
Chaos mod?
PC. Yeah, that's the one. I think it's fantastic because right at the start of the year, we had two projects that a lot of people in the community played and enjoyed, which doesn't come often. And I felt like my project took a little bit the wind out of the sails of that mod that still a lot of people played, and I wanted to give it a special shout out.
Agreed, that Chaos mod was a lot of fun, and I know I watched Nixo play it, and Flo, you played it as well, didn't you, on your stream?
I did.
It looked
It was a
very
lot
good.
of fun.
I definitely want to check it out myself, because it looked very good. Flo, do you have a story that you think deserves more love this month?
I think I'm always amazed by the Lowcast discoveries because it's like stuff that you're probably never gonna see in like a full game run, but it's just like so insane. Probably the last few things that have been found in Lowcast But I mean, also the getting partner was like massive milestone for me. Still really shocked I got it.
I can imagine. And as you heard in the recap, our head writer Nikki was very happy, if not a little bit annoyed that it didn't happen sooner. I will say Nikki's rant, he sent it to me. He did it one take. He improvised it, like he had a rough idea of what he wanted to say. But he did a great job, and just getting to listen to that with the bleeps. And then I happened to have when I was actually that like angry Harry face that pops up there. Was when I was looking for icons for the 6th gen games, and I found that, and I'm like, could we have this for HP1? And I'm like, no, it's way too specific. But that's why I had it on my computer, and I saw it while I was editing Nikki's rant, and I'm like, hang on a minute, this works well. But you do mention Lowcast, and I think now's a good time to come on to our main conversation, which is HP2PC Lowcast, and the extraordinary things that our special guest today, Ratburn, has been finding in it. So, I didn't really plan out how this big discussion would go, but I guess I'm sat here now like, how do we do this?
We point a gun at Ratburn and say, "Speak."
Yes, speak, Ratburn. I guess it's a different series, so if you hope you don't mind if I ask you this again, can you very quickly explain to people that don't know what Lowcast is and why it's such a challenging run, please?
Yep. So Lowcast, basically a run, in this case in HP2 PC, where the goal is to complete the game with as few spellcasts as possible. And we also have an extra rule that you can't use one specific glitch called Quidditch Warping, which is pretty much just an arbitrary rule to make you do more of the game. But besides that, do anything you could do in a normal speedrun, except that you want to do it in as few casts as possible. And because that matters more than time, it means pretty much you have to do any strat that is available to you, no matter how awful or how many tries it's going to take. Whatever you do is as much as it's going to be to get as few casts as possible in the run.
Yes. Lowcast is, we sort of realised during our interview, it's a unique run as well in the sense that it's timed by, or the time is secondary, and the casts are the optimal counter. But also, you can really run it however you want, as long as you don't cast more than 99 times. You can really do whatever you
100,
want.
isn't it? That is the maximum. 100. I think Human submitted one with 100 once, right?
I thought that, but then I also thought that speedrun.com didn't allow more than 2 numbers in the hours column. Oh no, you're right. 100 hours, 100 casts in 1 hour,
I think it was
13
just
minutes.
the rule decided after Human submitted that we would keep that as the maximum. I don't think there's like a strict technical limitation. Or at least if there is, we didn't hit it ever.
It's just to avoid people submitting runs, like normal 90% runs or something like that. No, I guess
I am actually incorrect. The limit for hours is 3 digits, so you could technically have 999 hours. But yeah, I think that's a good ruling based on what you said. So, yeah, for a long time, I remember, because I remember looking through like world records. I remember Nixo was quite high up in Lowcast, but lately, a certain US runner called Mr. Ratburn, or Mr. Ratburn Tro 44. Did I say that right?
Yeah. That
Yay!
sounds good.
So, little not inside joke, but little inside thing. I realised a couple of weeks ago that I've been spelling Ratburn's name wrong this entire time, and I still need to go back through every recap episode and just double check that in the descriptions the name is spelled correctly, because I was like, oh my god, how have I been spelling your name wrong this entire time? It's like when I realised that Jinx wasn't Jinx Rock. I was like, what? But
how long did you think that, Miney?
Like a couple of months. I thought it was Jinx Rock. It wasn't until I was doing cheat sheets for the Chungus tournament that I realised. Anyway, my question, I guess the next question really is, um, again, to summarize, to sort of give the listeners an idea of what exactly happened this month in Lowcast. We talked about it in the recap, and I don't want to reiterate too much stuff that was in the recap, but if I'm not much mistaken, the big things were the mushroom cast at the beginning of Goyle, or the mushroom boost mobile percent thing, and the oh come on brain, the stuff that's been found but's not yet in a run in Aragog with the cast skips with the webs.
Yes, those are the two big things in Lowcast in January.
Yeah, because I remember. Actually, I guess this is a good thing to ask you. Because I remember there was a discussion that came up around resizing game mid run. I think it was around the time you found that boost.
Yes, I brought that up because I was considering doing that, and there was never really any solid conclusion, so I just ended up doing the run in phone percent anyways.
Is it easier for that boost specifically, or just overall, or?
It's, I mean, technically that's like the optimal way to play the game because it shows you the most with the menu. It doesn't really matter most of the time, but that boost is extremely difficult to do without doing that. So that's why I had it for that run. Then there's a bunch of blank space on the screen, so that's why I just put that dumb Lockhart wizard card on there too.
Did was the conclusion ever reached, Flo, if resizing the game was allowed during a run? Flo?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. Repeat the question again. My mic went stupid.
Was a decision ever reached about if resizing the game during a run was allowed or not?
No. I mean, there's like a lot of like tiny things, like regarding 1 and 2 and 3, for like not just resizing. There's other things that are just like people haven't really done it, mostly because not a lot of for example, no one wants to resize like their game mid run because it's just kind of stupid. But we never made a rule about it because we never needed to make a rule about it. So if it gets abused, then maybe we'll like have a talk about it. But no, currently, if you really wanted to, you could resize your game mid run.
There you go, Ratburn. That's a
I think that
response
actually,
for you.
I think it came up again yesterday actually because like Akan was doing an attempt at one Lowcast and he ended up resizing during the run. So if he had completed that, it might have gotten to the point where we really needed a solid decision immediately. But sadly, that run died.
I don't see. Again, I don't. Not to turn this into a debate about this, but I don't think it's something that you could do so accidentally that it feels like a weird thing to ban. I mean, I guess if there's an advantage to it, then that's a different conversation. But
I
there's
mean, the
also got to
advantage
be.
pretty much comes from having the different size in the first place. The resizing mid run is just, I guess, to make it nicer to other people mostly. Personally, I don't really care a whole lot about what the rule is. I just want to make sure I'm doing stuff within the rules.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
no, I
Fair.
think it's fine for resizing because I mean most of the time when you're resizing, the game freezes for like a couple seconds. So other than Lowcast, I can't see any category where that would be useful.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But
another
it's
fun
probably
thing.
fine to let
My
it
run
slide.
also froze the game for like 2 minutes during the
Oh my
Lowcast.
god.
January. That was really fun. That's because I did like the. Oh, that's another thing that was found, I guess, that didn't come up in any other context. There was the different version of potion duping that came up, where you like enter a map with F4.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I tried that out for the very first time during the run, and it froze my game for like 2 minutes, which is kind of hilarious, and also thankfully doesn't really matter because it's Lowcast.
Interesting. Yeah, because still, it wasn't that like causing bugs for some, like crashes for some people. Some people it worked.
I don't remember all the details of
Illish
that.
crashed, if I remember
Definitely
correctly.
has the potential to slow down your game a lot, at least under some circumstances for sure.
Yeah, imagine if you're on like world record pace and you decide I'm gonna dupe potions, which I don't know why any world record paced person would, and then it crashes or freezes your game for 2 minutes. You're like, oh god, there goes world record. But no, as all world record holders will tell you, well, if Paul was a world record holder, he'd tell you, Sneck is free, as he says.
True that.
But yeah. Speaking of world records, I'm gonna throw it out there, even though it's February news. Flo, when are we claiming 2PC world record?
When you remove RNG from the game completely.
So, but, secondary question: when adding glitchless client to C? CC? Because that's removing
when people care
RNG.
enough about it.
Oh, there you go. You heard it here first, chat. You heard it here first. Yeah. So, yes, because yeah, you were finding. I remember you found the mushroom strat at the beginning, but you'd also found something in the big sort of open area, with like a weird sort of momentum boost that you got. Um, if I recall correctly, Ratburn.
Uh, okay, I think I know what you're referring to. In the area, like before the attic of the barn, it was basically doing the same sort of thing that Human found in Boom Slang, with like jumping off of a bouncing mushroom. And that was pretty much just simplifying the strat in that area so that we didn't need to bring like a bunch of mushrooms there. We only need to bring one mini-sized mushroom, and then we could just get through that area. So yeah.
I think we're confusing the what I was talking about by the block when you first come past the crab. You would I remember a video of you, it wasn't useful I don't think, but there's a video of you just for some reason getting a massive speed boost. I think you called it like super jumps in HP2.
Oh yeah, that was just me like messing around with the mini mushrooms, I think. Yeah, that was
Yes.
also cheated because I made the gnome standable there, so I was just like messing around with what I could do.
Dun dun dun! He cheated.
Oh, cheating in my videos with debug mode on, it's very
Yeah.
gameless.
Unforgivable.
Flo, I actually want to ask you here because I don't think you're someone who's ever done Lowcast before. Is there any reason why would you ever consider doing Lowcast?
I mean, I did for HP1, but that was before Akon broke the game even more. HP2, no, like the strats are just way too ridiculous. And when I see like the amount of time it takes sometimes to people to just, I think it's what the strat in Richter. I mean, it probably got better, but the thing where you block the gate with a gnome in the crab room, and just see Nixo spend like hours on this, and I'm like, yeah, no, let's not do that.
Yeah, I remember during Nixo's Insane percent. Because I think it was highlighted. Henriik would actually be able to tell us in the best stuff. I believe there was parts of that, right? That Insane percent came up quite a lot with the gnome.
I believe so. Yeah, that was definitely. I don't know. There's been too many clips.
Oh yeah, because then he got the awful soft lock, didn't he, with the block afterwards? Like he finally got the strat, and then the block didn't move in the next room.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
That was
yeah.
really painful to
Good
watch when I saw it
memories.
because I actually knew about that soft lock from like playing Rick 2 casually carrying a gnome for some reason like years ago, and just watching that was like pain because I knew exactly what was going to happen right before he casted it.
Ooh. So if you're holding a gnome when you cast on it just doesn't move.
Like the gnome has to be like touching the bar or something, and then the bar gets blocked or something. I don't know exactly how the physics works here, but basically if the gnome is up touching that bar, then it won't work.
Oh, that's horrible. Oh, I just because I remember how much he struggled with that strat because I was sort of
Although,
there in and out.
to be fair,
And
he's gotten a lot better at doing that strat too. I think it only took him like 20 minutes to get the gnome, and then like 20 minutes again, which obviously 40 minutes for one strat is kind of painful to people used to running a game where you complete the whole thing in less than 40 minutes, but it could be a lot worse.
yeah, it could be, to be fair. I guess Henrik, I'm gonna ask you this now because I've already asked Flo a question. My fellow host. Because I know you've done runs before, but it seems like most of the runs you've done are sort of longer runs, like your U5 GBA. Well, not U5 GBA any percent, but like you've done some of them like the back end of the series, which are generally more longer. Do you prefer longer
Uh,
runs or shorter runs?
no, I prefer runs that I don't need to practice in. Uh,
Fair enough.
that's mostly why, if you look at my speedrun.com profile, even outside of HP, I never ran a lot of games. I ran games that either have silly strats that allow you to beat the game in just a few minutes, or runs that are just for fun, I guess. But they tend to be longer because I don't have any strats. Like when I ran 6DS, for example, uh, it was mostly just because, well, I promised people I would run that on stream, but also because there's no tech. You just need to run fast, duel good, potion good, Quidditch good, and that's about it. Same as with the PC version, actually.
Hmm.
I wish I had time to learn, time, both time and patience, to learn more complicated runs. But yeah, that's why I don't do it. And I'm looking now and at the things that have been found in Lowcast and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, no, that's not for me. I'll leave that to the skilled people who dare to challenge themselves with runs like that. So I
Hmm.
take my hat off to you both, uh, Ratburn and Flo, for running these categories, and even you, Miney, who've run quite a few games in the past. Uh,
I've
that's for
certainly
me.
done runs like when I did my first run of 4PC, which was basically blind, which was like 4 hours of a run. I know it's the thing. I have
Right.
considered doing like a blind low cast, not so much like trying to do the strats, but more trying to think of the best way to save spellcasts in my head. Like, I'm curious to see how good I could get it if I tried my best to skip spellcasts, but didn't
Yeah, I
like
mean,
learn the route.
yeah, I
Is
think
that
that's pretty much what Human did with his first run that got the 100 cast. So I think it's a pretty good idea.
it was a good way to get into the category a little bit and then start? Because we were talking about this during our interview that like Lowcast is a very unique category in the sense that you can really make it whatever you want it to be, as long as you are under 100 casts. You can do whatever strats you want. You can skip a certain strat. Obviously, if you're going for optimal time, which is I assume why, because I assume Flo, if you ever did do two PC Lowcast, you would want to go for the optimal stuff, which is part of the reason why you don't want to. Um, but
Yes, very correct.
yeah, which is fair. But
The
like,
thing.
if someone's not as concerned about that, then the category is quite nice in a way because you can pick and choose in a way what strats you do. Um, I guess to that effect, Ratburn, are there any strats that actually I think Goyle was a good example of this. Everything seems to come back to Goyle and Lowcast. But are there many strats in the run where they sort of one spell cast skip ties to another one?
Hmm. I mean, definitely Goyle with like the current route, obviously, because you get the one cast on the mushroom, and then you need to keep using the mushrooms throughout the level to save casts. So that's definitely tied together there. Trying to think if there are any other levels where that applies. I mean, technically, you can do a similar thing with mushrooms and forest, but it's just the same amount of casts, so it would just be wasting a bunch of your time for no reason. Other than that, though, I can't really think of anything, to be honest.
That's fair. Yeah, but yeah, the run is certainly accessible in that sense of you can do whatever stretch you want. Like I say, as long as you're within the 100 cast limit. So that's
Yeah.
nice in a way, I think.
Also, like, the thing is, some of the really big cast saving strats, a lot of them are not really the hardest strats. It's really just getting the last few ones down to like 60 where they become really bad. Like even 70 is, it has some bad strats, but it's not absurdly awful. Like so many of the cast saves are just coming from like a few crabs that you just need to know how to manipulate correctly or stuff like that.
Interesting. I guess we should move on and talk a little bit about the Aragog strats that Human found. I know that you mentioned during the interview how you reacted when you looked at your phone that morning and you saw the strat the what Human had found. But I guess my question would be, how did you go about turning that into something more?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess sort of one thing I try to do when I'm trying to figure out a way to make a strat work is basically sort of approach it from the opposite direction instead of saying like, how can I make this thing happen again? Think first about what things are actually possible to do and then try to turn that into doing the thing rather than trying to think about what happened and trying to replicate it. So I would say part of it was actually seeing that same thing you mentioned earlier with like the speed boost from the gnome clipping up onto the mini mushroom, is the setup I found is actually doing a relatively similar thing, essentially, where instead you have a spider and it's going on these weird mushroom things that are in the Aragog fight that are totally unrelated to the other mushrooms in the game. But in that case, you pretty much want to do the same thing there, except into a specific part of the wall. So I was pretty much just experimenting with that in as many places as I could find in the fight, and I managed to come across one where it actually worked with just like a single spider instead of essentially standing on top of this huge pile of spiders like what Human had originally found, which I messed around a bit with and is really difficult to get anything replicable there. Like, I don't know if you've looked at his videos much from when he was originally posting that, but basically the spiders like rotate on top of each other and they just have these absurdly fast movements where it's very difficult to control anything at all. So pretty much just focused on finding a way to get that sort of movement in a more controllable situation, and then eventually ended up finding a way to do it into the wall where it actually got the same big upwards fling that could get you to the top.
So a lot of methodical processing in there, I'd say. Okay. Sort of. I thought this question while you were talking, and I'm going to direct it at Flo actually, because I know Flo is someone who's done this a lot. Flo, how does it feel when you find a useful strat in a game?
I mean, it really depends. There's like a lot of factors to take into account. Like how popular the game is, how much people have looked into it, how much the strat saves, like all that kind of stuff. Like for example, if I find a 2-second time save in some part of DS, I'm not really, I'm gonna care too much. But
Poor Southern
but
Portuguese.
yes. But I mean, I guess my like finding something in the trifecta game is already like pretty huge. But like the last thing I found, for example, was the thing where you work to a Quidditch match and you just click on the sixth match and then it just kind of like makes the game think that you're playing the sixth match even though you're on like a completely different match. And that one, when I found it, I was like really excited because like it had been a while since HP2 had a big time save, and I think that was like close to 20 seconds, maybe even more, which for any person was really huge. So most of the time it's really exciting. Same thing happened for all of that when I didn't really find it, but when Ace got found for a 1 GBC, that was also really exciting. It's like a whole history of like speedrunning 1 GBC and you just wipe out everything because the run just completely murdered the category. Usually
That's
it's really exciting.
that's fair. I know that, and I guess this is a question I could propose to Henrik as well, because I think you've run 1 GBA, right, Henrik?
Yeah, 1 GBA and 5 GBA.
So because I remember having a conversation with SLS about Ace versus like Wrong Warp, for example, and I remember one of the things he said to me was he wishes that Wrong Warp had been found like Ace was, in the sense that 1 GBC had been really like hammered into. People had put so much work into it, and the route was really good, and then Ace kind of finished everything off. Whereas, if I think I'm remembering this correctly, but Wrong Warp kind of came around very early on in routing, so a lot of potential stuff, which to be fair now does get used in No Wrong Warp, which Cosmic found, but a lot of stuff sort of ended up getting.
Chopped.
Yeah, it kind of took a shortcut as opposed to what 1 GBC did, and I guess the question really I'm trying to ask is, how do you feel about strats like that completely obliterate a game, and is there ever a good time in a run's history for them to come in?
Um, that's a good question. I know for 5 GBA specifically, it had like 3 or 4 runs by the time people found the save corrupt. Uh, it's not the wrong warp like in 1 GBA, but it also completely killed off the category. You don't have to play through the main game anymore. Um, but at the same time, I don't know. It definitely breathes new life into the game. I think we need to look more forward than behind. You still have a category with no ace that some people might run out of curiosity. But also there's gonna be a lot more people brought in by an any percent that's only like 20 minutes long, comparing to I don't know how it was in 1 GBC, like 1 hour or something.
Yeah, 1 hour
12.
12.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's never a good time or a bad time to completely, demolish a category, so to speak. But I do I do enjoy the fact that 1 GBC specifically had so much love put into it that the no ace category still has a load of strats that you need to accomplish in order to be up there on the leaderboard. Um, and a different set of skills is required to perform ace correctly. I don't know. I think it's going to be exciting to see a lot of new people coming in the next couple of years, just because the category is so fast to run, like like I did for 5 GBA about 2 years ago when I bothered everyone to play it, and there was a point where it had like 4 active runners, which was the most action that the category had ever seen.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting, but at the same time, yeah, for all those people who found those strats and they're like, oh no, not even in a full series or a pentafactor or a handheld octafactor, any percent, those aren't going to be used. Yes, but they're still there in some way. No, we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah.
I think overall, like, finding a huge skip like what happened in 1GB, I think overall is like probably like more beneficial for like leaderboard activity, because on one hand, yes, you have like you kind of like completely destroy the game and potentially ruin like finding more strats, but at the same time, if you look at the 2GBA leaderboard, I think there's really not that many run. And it was about the same for 1GBA. I think 1GBA might have had like a bit less. I'm not entirely sure. Right after Wrong Worm got found in 1GBA, then just like got a lot of runs. Like there's 54 runs on the leaderboards right now against how many? 17 run for 2GBA. And I think they were both about the same amount of runs. So like overall, I think it does like a lot of good when you find a skip that completely breaks the game.
Interesting. It's actually interesting you mentioned GBA because I remember the 100% category of that didn't actually get any runs last year, and by runs I mean individual runs submitted to that leaderboard. I know that by people like you, Flo, did full series because I had a few people bring that up.
Yeah.
But in terms of actual runs submitted to that board, 2GBA 100 didn't have any runs, which surprised me because yeah, it's a handheld game, but I always thought 2GBA was relatively liked within the handheld community.
It's really strange how like it's also I think 2GBA is sold at least over 1 million in terms of copies,
I believe
and
so,
like
yeah.
and like people always mention, yeah, the game was great, the game was my childhood, but it's just yeah, no one really runs it. It's really strange. I don't know why, but it does that for a lot of HP games, and it's just the appeal for speedrunning just doesn't seem to be like as strong. It's kind of the same for well, two Xbox. Like there's obviously a bit more on, but it's kind of the same thing where like I think two Xbox is sort of considered like the best Harry Potter game alongside with two PC casually. And yet like two PC had like over 100 runs, where two Xbox had like 26 runs right now. I see on the board. It's a
Do
bit
you?
different because you need a console and
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you think that has to do with like accessibility of that run versus a PC run?
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, there's definitely that to take into account. That like yeah, it's having to get because that's the thing. You have the emulator leaderboard, but people will always obviously consider like the real record and the fastest record as on console. So if you wanna compete on the console board, you gotta get a console, and then you gotta get an Xbox, and now you have to mod it for it to be HDD, play on the hard drive. And I mean, it's an investment. Like I think overall, I probably spend if we combine everything HP, I probably spend over like 600 euros, just like everything HP related for both handheld and
Oh wow.
Only on the
console.
games?
Yeah.
Or
I
games
mean
and
now.
consoles?
Yeah. I mean, it was back when we weren't playing on the hard drive. Plus, you needed a console from the US, like NTSC.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a lot more money. So that means you have to take into account paying an Xbox, shipping from the US, plus 3 games shipping from the US. Actually, 4. That 2 PS2 became a thing. And then also buying a converter if you're from EU. Otherwise, you just blow up your Xbox because it's like different voltage. I don't know how it works, but yeah.
Yeah, so
But
I was searching for sales history. Sorry to butt in. Apparently, according to a lot of stats and reports by EA themselves and other chartings, Chamber of Secrets on the GBA sold nearly 2 million copies worldwide.
Oh wow.
yeah, that's a lot. And then
It's
it's
yeah, it's about 600,000 less than the PS2 version, which is considered, uh, the best-selling one overall.
Hmm.
So that's
it's
impressive.
Yeah, it's really strange that the speedrun doesn't get more activity because it's not like it's hard to get into either because there are emulators for that game. Like BizHawk is really good and like it's totally fine to run on it and you're not gonna lose time on like playing Dolphin for section. But yeah, I really don't know why people don't run that game. It's a good game.
Indeed.
I might run it in the future then.
Oh.
Hopefully.
I guess Ratburn. I think. Am I correct in saying you've only run 2 PC?
Yes, that is
Would-
correct.
Would you ever consider delving into another game in the HP series? I know we talked about potentially HP1 during the interview we did, but is there any other games you've maybe considered diving into?
I doubt it, to be honest. I mean, I've pretty much... The only ones I actually played growing up were like 1, 2, 5, and 6 PC, and like, I'm not really interested in doing any sort of speedrun or similar on 5 and 6, to be honest. I'm not super interested in the other ones that I haven't played before. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out entirely, but if there's another game that I will play, it'll probably be 1 PC.
Follow-up question. Would you consider running 5 GBA any percent?
Maybe if someone paid me.
Alright, fair enough.
Spend money in your bank
I'll
account
I'll
tomorrow.
get the money prepared. I mean what?
Great. It gives me great Labour vibes, which we really do need to do, like some sort of retrospective, not even a retrospective, but some sort of thing on, because grey Labour in itself is such a thing that, for the longest time, I didn't really understand it. And to be honest, for the longest time, I was kind of annoyed by Great Labour. I can't lie, because I remember, like, because as
So
someone
much
who's
fun.
but as someone who's very invested in tracking everything to do with Nixo, and like seeing how much hard he was working for some of these like times, and then to see like people just come along and knock him out of top 10, what seemed to be for the heck of it. I think it is. I won't lie, it annoyed me a little bit at first, but then I sort of was like, it's a bit of fun. Nixus doesn't seem to mind it. Like, it sort of became a running joke. I remember there was I can't remember what run it was from, but there's the clip that someone edited on Nixo's Discord where, like someone asked him, what do you think about Grey Labour? And someone's edited it so he goes like, effing pricks, all of them. Or something like that. I remember that clip. But, no, I've mellowed a lot to Grey Labour over the years. I think
It's a good deal of friendly competition, and if it helps you push further and further in your skills and stuff, I think it's completely fine. And also, people are in their right to go for good times in every run they want.
Yeah,
I mean, you gotta see it the content way because if Nixo gets top 10 everywhere, then he doesn't have any grind anymore and no more content. But if we keep pushing him out of top 10, then he gets unlimited content. It just never ends.
We're doing him a favor.
You're just doing him a favor, yeah. I think I just think there was a part of me, especially because a lot of these people I didn't know very well. I've since got to know a lot of the people sort of in the Great Labour circle, for want of a better expression, better. But I think because I didn't know a lot of these people, I think there was almost like this was my first impression of them. So it was kind of like, oh, you're an annoying person. It's like, no, this person's fine. They just, like you say, it helps Nixo out. Nixo doesn't mind it. He likes the competition. It's weird. It was like secondhand annoyance kind of thing. It was like, I don't know why I'm feeling like this, but that was in the past, like I say, just to put it out there. If any Great Labour members are listening, that was in the past. I enjoy what you do now. But yeah, a question I was going to actually ask Ratburn, but then we kind of went down a bit of a rabbit hole. Obviously, we're talking about like human strat here that you've kind of, or human's discovery that you've kind of come along and found a sort of setup for. My question is, how does it feel when you're able to take something someone's found, but they're maybe not too sure about how to take it forward, and then turn it into something because they found what they found?
I mean, I would say pretty good. I mean, honestly, that's kind of what I've done for a large amount of Lowcast, like in terms of, say, stuff like the door clips in Bicorn. I was pretty much me figuring out a way to do it relatively consistently out of something that no one really knew how to do better than just sort of stand at the door for hours. So that's pretty much actually been like my main approach, and it is something I like doing a lot, to be honest.
I can imagine that. I always remember one of my biggest highs in this community was right when I joined, when I was in a call with Blaze and we were talking about random stuff in 2PS2, and I mentioned it is known that you can house point dupe, right? And he's like, no. It's like, how? And I'm like, hang on, I need to double check how to do it. And I found this old YouTube video that I'd seen years ago of how you can, if you save and reload after finishing the Incendia lesson, in HP2PS2, you can get infinite house points. You basically get re-given the house points every time. And I remember it was right when Beaver was in the middle of doing his first run with this new route that he'd found. And I always remember because it was my first proper introduction to both Beaver and Flo, because I posted the video and basically Blaze got their attention. I always just remember Flo watching the video and sort of narrating what was happening to Beaver. He's like, loading, loading, loading. He gets house points, loading. And then as soon as Flo sees and tells Beaver that this is, it's duping the house points, he was like, tell me how now. And it was just like, I remember this biggest sort of high of like, Beaver was rerouting on the spot to do this stuff and all this extra stuff that I'd been finding out. The key skip the next day, which now has actually been proved to actually be quite a useful time save. And if we ever do get an any % no end day skip category, then that strat will actually prove very useful. And I think Blaze told me it saves about 13 seconds, which is pretty decent, all things considered. But all that, like the spell menu, like skips, like it's so weird because I put so much into that game and I want to run it, but my PC isn't strong enough to run the emulator well, and I don't have a PS. Oh, I have a PS2. I have a copy of the game. Oh, 17. Thank you, SLS. But I want to run the game, but I don't have the beans to because I found so much for it. But sorry, that went into a bit of a deep dive. But finding strats, we talked about it earlier, is such a buzz for me, particularly that night. I think key skip in particular, because we're all in a VC. I remember it was like me, Blaze, SLS, and a few others were in a VC, and we were sort of playing around with key skips. Some other people were testing it, and it felt like it was a really magical moment for me, and I really enjoyed it. I want to quickly bring round, before we finish the sort of deep dive, to something else that you did this month, Ratburn, which Flo has a bit more not acknowledgement of, but knowledge of, and that's the Jumpless discoveries that you made with Coney? Is that their new name now? Connie?
Yeah, I think Coney is right as far as I know.
But yeah, you and Coney were doing some big finds in Spongify this month.
Yeah, I mean, that was, to be honest, mostly Coney, I would say. Basically, I guess, was looking into trying to do Spongify Jumpless and pretty much put a bunch of effort into doing it with like the imp-ride strat, and then that turned out to be something that only worked because I've been doing it on a replay, and then somehow like the very next day after finding out that that didn't work, figured out a way to trip on top of that imp and pretty much brought it up in Nixo's chat. And then my part was pretty much just figuring out how to replicate what had happened by accident, and then creating from that a full strat for getting that in a run.
Yeah, it was definitely a big find. Flo, how does it feel when something like this is found that requires a board wipe?
I mean, yeah, it really depends the way you look at it, because there's two different ways to look at it. It's like, oh, let's go. It's like novelty. There's like new stuff, new strat, completely different run. And you can also see it the way of like, oh man, I had like a great run. I had a great PB, because I think Porter was pretty proud of his time with Warps. I could be wrong, but I think he was pretty happy about it. So you can also see it the way like, oh man, that sucks. Like I put so much time into it. I got like an amazing PB. I grinded hard for it, and now everything is getting wiped. But I guess if people did complain, we could have made a different board. So I think
mean,
overall it's good.
yeah, I mean, those runs are archived on the Legacy Category doc, and they always will be there as a reminder of the effort that people put in. I remember Nixo was semi annoyed because Portal broke his world record, so he was second, and it's I think it's like the second or third archived leaderboard that he's second on, because I think if I remember correctly, 120 FPS and maybe 3 Benny he was second on. So
Yes.
he's second again on another archive leaderboard. So I
That's
remember him
strange.
being a bit annoyed about it, but I say annoyed. I did that and I realized you can't see me. I did like bunny ears to say annoyed, but like yeah, it's definitely a really cool discovery, and I think it makes the challenge run feel more of a challenge run, because like you said earlier about Lowcast Ratburn, the rule about no warps, well, it might be an arbitrary one. It helps to make sure that you actually play the game, which you now do. Obviously, it wasn't possible before with Jumpless, but now this strat has been found, it is possible, which means as you get to do Slytherin, Scourge, and Goyle all Jumpless rather than just warping out, which proves there's some interesting strats, as we talked a bit more about in our interview. I guess. Where do I want to go with this conversation? I was like, Flo, did you run Jumpless with warps?
No, actually no. It was my when I put it was a sub goal during Jumpless, and when I put up that sub goal, it was with warps, which I would have been a lot happier about, because that would have made my job a lot easier. But yeah, then it was found that you can skip or you can do Spongefy, and then yeah, then I had to no warp, which probably made my grind a little bit longer. But
That was actually one of my like concerns. I was worried about when I found the strat. Was like, oh no, the board's gonna get wiped. It's gonna be way too easy for Flo. But thankfully, Portal made it hard, so didn't have that problem come up.
yeah, no, Porno got a run like almost instantly, and I just yeah, that was a cool like 9.5 hour jump play stream that I did. It was really fun.
I remember, because Ratburn, I think you did a few runs, didn't you? And you had submitted them. And I remember because Paul kept DMing me, he's like, this happened, this happened, and I've just verified it. I'm like, yeah, I've seen it, Paulo. I've added it to the doc. Because I think you just wanted to make sure that you got the credit you deserve for these world records, which is fair, you know. It doesn't go without saying that, you know, you put a lot of effort into these games, and it's very respectable. And I think I speak for, I like to think all of the community when I say that we commend you for the amount of effort and grinding you put into some of these skips, and finding some incredible stuff that, like Flo said earlier, you'd never expect to see. And yeah, we commend you for that.
Thank you.
Clap, clap, clap.
I also clapped, but it didn't catch on my microphone,
Yes.
and I'm sad.
The last thing I want to ask you, sort of as a part of this big, deep discussion, is you mentioned earlier about not just the possibility of a 53, but also a 52. Would you care to
Yeah.
explain a little bit more?
That's the strat I don't want to think about all the time, but like castless Spongify is technically possible. I mean,
Oh yeah.
with current knowledge, it's maybe like a 1 in a million chance, but it's technically possible. I don't know. I've been looking into that a bit more to see if I can maybe make something actually happen, but at the moment, that's by far the worst out of the technically possible, but not yet done cast saves, which I guess are just that and the 7 from Aragog.
Is that the one where you were on the table with the net and you gnome potion jump thing?
Yeah,
Was
you have
it?
to get on the table and then like lure the imp over and drop the gnome using a potion and then bounce off the gnome midair after it bounces off the imp, and then Harry lands on the candle, and then you need to get lucky and have the gnome bounce off of the imp into the correct direction so that Harry can grab it out of the air, and then you need to throw the gnome and then like jump on it mid-air and get the exact perfect speed boost so that you can just barely manage to grab the ledge. So yeah, sounds very
So,
possible, right?
Flo,
As
when
far as
doing
I'm
Lowcast with this strat?
concerned, you spoke a foreign language.
No, leave me alone.
No.
No.
Sounds easy. I don't know why you wouldn't go for it.
Leave me alone.
Okay. So to round
Uncle?
off, the episode, I want to sort of pick a highlight of the month. That it could be something big, something small, something that was a big highlight for you this month. For me, sort of looking through the list again because I'll be honest, my brain's gone a bit dead. For me, it was probably Flo getting the more full series world records, which, and yes, I only picked this as a chance to bully Flo. Flo, when are you submitting your full series hundo?
Yeah, soon, of course. Very soon.
I will reference that was near the beginning of January. It's now the 26th of February when we're recording this, and Flo has still not submitted it. And also, I found an IL run on my computer the other day and I submitted it because in the video I was talking about I'm going to update the full series runners time doc, but I'm just waiting for Flo to submit his full series hundo because it seems a bit weird to update it and then it immediately be out of date. And that was back last month, and I put in the description like, and Flo still hasn't submitted that full series, and I just get a DM from Flo. He's like, I saw that, and I'm like, yeah, that was my intention. I wanted you to see it. But yeah, my highlight, in all seriousness, though, my highlight is definitely the full series runs, and also it was slightly into December, but all the crazy multi runs you have been doing these past couple of months, like it's crazy to see you as someone who is, I think, generally regarded as one of the best HP speedrunners. Someone who, as I believe Nikki described in November, someone if you cut him open, he would probably like ooze HP games. Like it's cool to see you do so many big runs and really sort of put your mark on the multi-runs leaderboard, particularly like the back end of the multi-runs leaderboard, like the handheld Octa, the full series, the GBA Penta kind of thing. It's
All
really cool
those
to
big
see
ones,
that.
yeah.
So that would
Glad.
be my highlight. Henriik, what's your highlight? I think I know what your highlight's gonna be.
Yeah, do I need to say it? The read-up coming out. It had to come out.
Why are you sounding Irish all of a sudden?
January. Am I?
Yeah,
Sorry.
the way you said out, you sounded very Irish to me. Sorry, go.
Well, shout out to all the Irish viewers out there. But yeah, it had to come out in January because I wanted it to come out at least a few days before I suddenly became very unavailable, which I still am at the time of this recording. But the reception to it was beyond anything I could have imagined, honestly. And getting all the feedback and all the love for the work that not only I put in, but of course a lot of people put in throughout the course of a few months was incredible, you know, and seeing that pay out in a beautiful project that a lot of people enjoyed. I wouldn't say it made it all worth it, uh, but it came close. It was definitely a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm glad. It was a great project, and for anyone that doesn't know, we got Henriik back by getting him a Kudo board for Valentine's Day, which we all signed, and ended up with an $85 contribution to a gift card. Which I'm gonna put this out there now. When you know the person who you're getting a gift card for uses euros, do not set the currency of the gift card to dollars.
Basically, the way I received that money was converting from US dollars to British pounds, and then from British pounds to euro.
Yep,
Don't do that.
because I had to reclaim it and send it to him, so it went through like 3 different currencies. But we got there, yay!
We got there in the end, yes.
Yes. Flo, I think I know what your highlight's going to be as well. But what is your highlight of the past month?
For February
For
or
January.
January, yeah. I think the Reader project, it was just it was so much fun. Like I especially I think because the one thing I was scared about the Reader project is that it was gonna be really fun at first, but like halfway through the game, it was probably gonna be like some repetitive jokes or stuff like that. I was a bit afraid of that. It was gonna get boring. But it was just like so much fun throughout the entire thing. And it was also something that involved like the entire community. So yeah.
Yeah. It definitely. I like that it was involved a lot of the speedrun community, but also there was some casual people in there too, which I think was a really cool sort of mix.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I'm really happy that it was sort of Nixo's community that it got its boost in, because it meant that we got a lot of speedrunners, but also got a fair few casual people, people that are sort of, I guess, passive members of the community. Like, I guess you could say Winter, I would sort of define her as a passive member of the community. Like, she's around and she's very active, obviously, as a mod, but she's not someone who's overran the games for her reasons, which I won't go into here, but, she, I don't know, is that, would that be, you agree with me there, Henrik, to sort of define Winter as such?
Yes, definitely. Overall, we had 39 different people involved in the project voicing. So yeah, coordinating that amount of people wasn't particularly easy, but it added to the sense of this great big project. So I'm glad it was your highlight of the month, Flo, because I
Yep.
definitely wasn't expecting it.
I thought he was going to say game partner, to be honest. I'm surprised
Screw
he
you,
didn't.
Twitch. I'm more important.
But yeah, again, I will mention this as I've talked about a lot today. There's the interview with Ratburn, which me and Ratburn did, and also me and Henriik did an interview about the redub, which we
Ratburn
recorded.
hasn't said his highlight
I
of
know.
the
I'm
month.
just
Oh.
mentioning that there's,
Oh,
if
okay,
you want to
okay,
hear
okay.
more
I thought you were
about the.
cutting him for
I'm
a
not
second.
cutting Ratburn off. He's our esteemed guest. But there's also an interview with me and Henrik where we talk a bit more about the redub, which was recorded a few days before the redub released. So Henrik was keeping his cards very close to his chest, but he did let some stuff out, which was very interesting. But finally, but last but certainly not least, Mr. Ratburn, what is your highlight of the month?
Yeah, I guess I would say, as someone who enjoys 2PC a whole lot, the most exciting part for me was the whole alliance to retake the world records between Flo and Human, which obviously worked out more for Flo in January, but us in the future here know that Human also just got any percent a day and a half ago, so I think that whole saga has been very exciting.
Definitely, it's been one that's been interesting to follow, and it's interesting to track. I'll tell you, because on Friday night I moved over all of the 2PS2 runs to the new board because we've split the board. So my notifications were ruined because I made the mistake of following the game before I moved all the runs. So it
Oh,
meant that
no.
like I had 40 plus notifications of like a run has been verified, a run died, all of this. I'm like, what? Like I don't need all these notifications for stuff that's technically already happened. It was quite something. But yeah, would anybody does anybody have any final words they'd like to say before we round off today's episode?
Especially you two, our esteemed guests, because me and Minor will return for next month.
Chungus Bedroom. Sorry. Nah, I'm
Agreed.
kidding. That was a joke.
Same. Also joke. Yes.
Little joke. I love you, Porno.
Ratburn?
Hey, great labor people do Lowcast. Can't be that hard, right?
Fair enough.
Uh,
Speaking of Great Labour, actually, it gives me a good reminder to remind people that Nixer's HP2 PC Glitches tournament is taking place in March and April. You can still sign up if you want to. You've got until the end of February, so the 29th, at which point the everything will be closed up and the official planning will begin. Hopefully by next month, when the recap comes out, we should have a date for the event. Nixer has told me that he's going to try and work it out this weekend, so by the time the recap comes out for February, we should have dates to give you if you're just interested in watching it. It's going to be very interesting. There is going to be a Glitchless A tournament, which is going to be a double elimination, and a Glitchless B tournament, which is going to be a single elimination. And all being well, myself will be there as doing commentary. Henriik, I think you're doing commentary as well, right?
exactly right.
Flo, you're not running, are you?
In the Glitchless tournament?
Yes.
Oh, I applied. I'm gonna
Oh,
be
did
there.
you? Did you?
Yeah, of course. I always
My
apply
sis-
for tournament.
My
Sign
sincerest apologies. I didn't realize you were in the tournament. I don't
I
know.
always sign up for tournaments.
Oh, yeah,
Every
you're
single
right
one of
there.
them, even
Third
when I don't like
seed.
them.
Yeah, you're.
That's
Of
true.
course, ignore me. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Flo will be
Even
in the
if it's
tournament
loose,
playing.
rock, paper, scissors.
It could be like the worst category in the world. As long as it's HP, I will participate because tournaments
So
are
you're
important.
saying that I have someone who'd sign up for a 5 GBA tournament. Interesting.
Anyway, before Flo kills Henriik, thank you very much for listening to the first episode of Recap Rewind. Please let us know what you think about this new format. Obviously, this is our first pilot episode, so there's definitely going to be things that we're going to look at improving. So if you have any feedback, please do let us know. You can either leave a comment or you can message myself or Henriik directly. Thank you to our wonderful guests, the wonderful Flo203, head of World Records, as dubbed by Mr. Blaze Knight, and Lowcast extraordinaire Ratburn, for giving us a bit more of a deep dive into Lowcast and the strats that are within it. Thank you both for joining us.
I was about when you say something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Alright,
watching,
well-
everyone, and we'll see you all next month. Me and Henriik will be back with some more guests and some more interesting stories.
And hopefully
Goodbye.
less stick. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye bye.